Police found Cordelia at her sister's house in Healdsburg, California, and they arrested her. Now, this arrest didn't go quite the way that the police anticipated. They were hoping she would just confess to the murders and they could all skip the trial. And the mountain of paperwork that was probably going to come along with it, I could skip that too, you know? But Cordelia surprised them. Not only did she refuse to confess, but she decided to fuck with the police who came to arrest her. When the police showed up, they're like, pack your things, you're going to jail. And Cordelia said, you know, sure thing, just wait right here and I'll go pack. And boy, did she pack. She packed her trunk so heavy that it took 2 police officers to carry it out of there. I guess she figured that she was probably going away for a while and she needed every outfit she owned. Or she was stalling. Now, this case was interesting because it was the first case of murder by mail. Oh, yes. But it was also the first American prosecution for a crime that took place in 2 different jurisdictions. The state of California and the state of Delaware battled it out for a hot minute over who was going to oversee the court proceedings. Now, Delaware argued that Cordelia should be tried in Dover because that's where the actual murder took place. But California said, no way, you can't extradite a person to a place where they've never been before. And California ended up winning that argument, and Cordelia's trial began on December 6, 1898. Now, it was no big surprise when Cordelia pleaded not guilty before the San Francisco judge, but what was a big surprise was how fascinated the city of San Francisco was by the whole thing, and it turned into a media circus. I'm sorry I'm not doing any makeup. I really did finish my makeup quite fast, didn't I? I practiced it yesterday, and I think that's why. Anyways, so this case was getting a lot of attention. People were packing the courtroom to the gills. They were just eating up all this drama. They were fascinated by Cordelia's private life and her sexual indiscretions. The newspapers reported on Cordelia's excessive vanity, they called it. They also talked about her love for posing for photographs in a very sexually suggestive way. Of course, they're mainly in the media focusing on how she looks and her sexuality and all of that because, you know, she was the villain you love to hate, and they wanted every salacious, scandalous detail about her. Now, Victorian era, remember? No TV, no trash TV, no reality TV, right? No, none of that. The people, they had to rely on the San Francisco Chronicle and Examiner for their hot gossip. They essentially were the People magazine of back in the day. In the beginning of Cordelia's trial, the prosecution laid out a pretty solid case. They presented the handwriting analysis that they had done, and they had witnesses speak about the different items that Cordelia bought, and they also pulled out the string and the brown paper that were found in Cordelia's hotel room. Now, during all of it, Cordelia just pretty much sat there. It was said that she was just emotionless, nothing. Now, Cordelia would show up to court very dramatic. She was dressed in like an all-black dress. She would have a white lace handkerchief in her hand, and it looked like she was going to a funeral. I just can't imagine how judgmental it was back then. Oh, God. The media, though, they would describe her as a, quote, smug, self-satisfied, cunning little woman, end quote. But they really painted her as the villain, which I guess she was, but I mean, most of all, it was selling newspapers more than anything else. They needed this villain to sell papers. Now, people were so eager to get a glimpse of John Dunning. They wanted to know what is so special about this guy that it was worth murdering over, you know? Like, we have to see what he looks like. Who is he? So people are just excited when it was his day to, like, come into the courtroom. He must be super hot if he's worth murdering over, right? Well, when John showed up, people were very disappointed when he entered the courtroom. The newspapers described him as whiny, and the papers also mentioned that he had a good cleft chin, which I guess is a good thing. But the newspapers also said that John had narrow shoulders and thinning hair, and they were just going in on John and Cordelia's looks. Not much has changed, huh? So John ends up taking the stand, and the defense questioned him about the number of women that he had slept with in San Francisco. They really wanted to show the jurors that John had many lovers, and any of them could have been the one that murdered Mary Elizabeth. And you know what? John tells the courtroom that he could not remember who he slept with or any of their names. He would go on to say that he could remember 3 names in addition to Cordelia's, but he wasn't going to say who they were and what their names were. The prosecution, they weren't having any of that. So they decided to teach John a lesson and threw him in jail jail for the night. They were like, hey, maybe sitting your ass in jail will jog your memory. But nope, John still refused. So the judge figures, let's put him another night in jail. Maybe that will make him speak. At first, I couldn't figure out why they wanted that information so bad. Like, why does it matter? But it makes sense. Like, they wanted to pin it on somebody else. But John refused to give anyone's names. He did not want these people, these women, to be dragged into this whole mess and get thrown into the middle of all of it and then have a murder pinned on them. So John he didn't reveal who they were. He kept his mouth shut. Bravo, John. Honestly, that's pretty great. Because, like, it would have went completely south. Those poor women would have been brought into it. It would have been a hot mess. So good for him. The defense team, they realized we're not going to get any answers from John, so let's just let it go, I guess. Now, when it was Cordelia's turn to take the stand, it was like her whole presence was scripted. We know Cordelia thought that she was hot shit, but her legal team wanted her to tone it down a little bit. So she spoke with like an upbeat and pleasant tone that the defense team thought the jury would find endearing. They also wanted her to sound intelligent and independent. Right? So they're like telling her, here's what you're going to say. Here's how you should talk. Here's how you should sit. You know, it's hard to convict a woman you like. Right? During questioning, Cordelia did admit to purchasing arsenic back in June, which was like, what? At this time, they didn't know that. So she admits to this, but she said she bought it because she wanted to clean a straw hat with it. She loved her straw hat. It needs to be cleaned. She was upset because she didn't see how this pinned the murder on her because she purchased powdered arsenic, not the crystalline type that was found in the chocolates. So Cordelia also claimed to have an alibi that could prove that she did not purchase the chocolate or mailed the package on the days in question. But when they told her, okay, what's your alibi? Like, bring him in here. Let's have him questioned. No one ever came forward to support her alibi. Girl, you're a mess. Get it together. The trial only lasted about 3 weeks, and on the day of closing statements, a line of over 500 people formed outside the courthouse. Everyone wanted to be there for the grand finale, right? Everyone's trying to get inside, and of course, the courthouse can't fit that many people. So the examiner came up with a brand new idea. Instead of taking the time to collect the news, run back to the printing press, lay out the type and print of the trial results, the newspaper executives decided to do something super innovative for this time. Live news. I know. Good for them. They essentially invented Twitter during this time, but they didn't even know it, you know? They didn't. I'm exaggerating. But they built this big billboard out of wood in front of the courthouse, and the reporters, they would rotate running in and out of the courtroom with minute-by-minute updates that were posted onto this board, which was large enough for everyone who was standing outside was able to read this. Now, so they're updating this board, and people are able to get, what's happening. Great. On December 30th, after 4 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Cordelia of murder. And on February 4th, Judge Cook sentenced her to life in prison. Now, when they updated that little board outside, the crowd erupted. Everyone was so excited. It was like New Year's Day. They had nothing else going on, you know? It was exciting to them. So Cordelia is carted off to the San Francisco jail, but she doesn't seem to stay there that long.